For centuries, this one nation has been locked in an insane battle for its very soul. In 2022, Russia launched a full-scale invasion, and you won't believe what their leader said. He claimed modern Ukraine was a fake country invented by Russia, calling it an inalienable part of our own history. But is that even true? Spoiler alert. The story of Ukraine is not some boring footnote in a Russian history book. It is an absolutely epic saga of a nation that refuses to quit. To understand this war, you have to know Ukraine's insane journey out of Russia's shadow. This isn't just a war for land, it's a war for an identity that was born long before Moscow was even a big deal. Alright, we're going back in time, over 1,000 years. And we're not starting in Moscow. We're starting in Kyiv. In the 9th century, this place called Kievan Rus was basically the birthplace of East Slavic civilization. It was a mega center for trade and culture. And then, boom! In 988, a prince named Vladimir the Great chose Christianity, a move that would change everything for millions of people. That shared history is a fact. But what happened next is a story of two completely different paths. The golden age of Kievan Rus was completely shattered by the Mongol invasions in the 13th century. It was total chaos, and the paths of what would become Ukraine and Russia split. While Moscow was stuck dealing with Mongol influence, Ukrainian lands leveled up, joining forces with Lithuania and Poland. During this time, a totally unique Ukrainian identity started to form, with its own language and deep ties to Europe. And get this, out on the plains, these absolute legends called the Cossacks emerged. These were fierce, freedom-loving warriors who built their own state, the Cossack Hetmanate, like a super early version of a Ukrainian republic. But their search for freedom led to a decision that would change history forever. In 1654, needing help against Poland, their leader Bohdan Khmelnytsky signed the Treaty of Pereyaslav with the Tsar of Muscovy. The Cossacks thought, cool, a temporary friend. The Tsar thought, lol, you work for me now. This one misunderstanding poisoned their relationship for the next 350 years. That so-called partnership? It turned into a hostile takeover, like, instantly. Through the entire 18th century, the Russian Empire just crushed Cossack freedom. An empress, Catherine the Great, completely deleted the Hetmanate and swallowed Ukrainian lands into her empire. Next came one of the craziest cultural attacks ever, known as Russification. The goal was to literally erase Ukrainian identity and call them Little Russians. In 1863, a decree actually said a separate Ukrainian language never existed, does not exist, and cannot exist. Then, the EMS cause of 1876 banned all books printed in Ukrainian. Can you believe that? But you can't just cancel an entire culture. The spirit of independence refused to die, with poets like Taras Shevchenko keeping the dream alive. Their chance came during the chaos of World War I in 1918. Leaders declared the independent Ukrainian People's Republic. But the dream was torn to shreds in a brutal war between Bolsheviks, White Russians, and Poland. By 1921, independence was gone, and most of Ukraine was dragged kicking and screaming into a new empire, the Soviet Union. And if you thought that was bad, under Soviet rule, the war on Ukrainian identity got 100 times worse. After a short time of pretending to support Ukrainian culture, Joseph Stalin unleashed a new kind of terror. He tried to force all farmers to give up their land, and Ukraine's independent farmers resisted. To crush that resistance, the Soviet regime did something unimaginable. They engineered a famine, now known as the Holodomor, or death by starvation. This was a deliberate genocide. As the breadbasket of Europe grew food, the government took all the grain, sealed the borders, and left millions to starve. At its peak in 1933, an estimated 28,000 people died every single day. Around 3.9 million people died in a man-made disaster created to break the nation's spirit. World War II brought even more destruction, as Ukraine became a battlefield between Nazis and Soviets. Some Ukrainian nationalists even fought against both sides. After the war, Soviet control and Russification came right back. But even after all that, The dream of freedom was passed down through generations. And then, it finally happened. On August 24, 1991, as the Soviet Union crumbled, Ukraine's parliament declared independence. They held a vote, and an insane 92% of voters chose independence. Critically, every single region had a majority vote yes, even 54% in Crimea. But winning freedom is one thing, keeping it is a whole other challenge. Ukraine had to deal with a terrible economy, corruption, and a Russia that just wouldn't let go. In 2004, the tension exploded in the Orange Revolution. Russia's favorite candidate tried to rig the presidential election, so hundreds of thousands of people peacefully flooded the streets to protest. And guess what? They won. The Supreme Court canceled the results, proving that Ukrainians, not Moscow, would choose their leaders. 10 years later, they had to do it all over again. When President Yanukovych suddenly backed out of a huge deal with the EU to get closer to Russia, it sparked the revolution of dignity. A student protest blew up into a massive, nationwide uprising against corruption and Russian control. After a brutal crackdown where over 100 protesters were killed, Yanukovych literally fled the country in February 2014. The people had won, but Russia's revenge was swift and insane. Seeing Ukraine turn to the west, Vladimir Putin ordered an invasion. Secret Russian soldiers, the Little Green Men, took over Crimea. After a fake referendum held at gunpoint, Russia illegally annexed the peninsula. Moscow then created a fake separatist war in Ukraine's eastern Donbas region. For 8 years, a brutal conflict killed over 14,000 people. And that was just the warm-up. On February 24, 2022, Russia launched an all-out invasion of the entire country. Putin gave the crazy excuse that he wanted to denazify Ukraine, a completely baseless lie to try and wipe the country off the map for good. But the empire made one huge mistake: it completely underestimated the power of an idea. It didn't realize that centuries of being pushed around had created an unbreakable Ukrainian spirit. The nation that Russia claimed was fake rose up with a courage that shocked the world. The story of Ukraine isn't some wayward branch of Russia. It's the story of a great European nation that has been fighting for its place on the map for centuries. That fight is still happening right now. Their resilience is an insane reminder of the true price of freedom and the incredible strength of a national identity that will not be erased. If you've been moved by Ukraine's epic struggle, please consider donating to reputable humanitarian organizations. We've dropped a few links in the description. And to help this story blow up, please like, share, and smash that subscribe button for more insane deep dives into the history that shapes our world. Thank you for watching.